John, I'm sitting here now with Mackenzie Nordli. He's our one of our top operators from the last 2 summers. Mac, thanks for taking the time to sit down with me. You've obviously done really well over 2 years. You've gone from being a student at Trinity Western now to being at BIU. I know you're a rugby player. You're a business guy. You've done quite well for yourself in 2 years. You've gone out and your first year did, I think, around $155,000 in sales. And this year you've improved on your performance. I think you're going to finish in around $240,000 in sales, and you've made really good money. How's it been for you? I mean, tell me as far as what did you do before Scholar's Edge?
Before Scholar's Edge, I worked at Virgin Mobile for a summer. So I was doing sales, I was working at a booth. I'd worked previous jobs to that as well. I worked at Nesbog's, which is a local butcher, and Tim Hortons as well. So I've consistently worked since about grade 8 or 9. Coming into Scholar's Edge, I knew I was going to have quite a bit of a challenge. So that's probably the big difference that separates this out from previous jobs I had, where when I'm working at a booth or if I'm working behind a counter somewhere, I'm not really testing myself to the fullest of my abilities. But definitely over the past 2 years, I've had some pretty tough things happen, and I've had some really good moments as well. So that's pretty interesting out of this.
I know that you've also been quite inspired through Scholar's Edge to be self-learning. You're at BIU right now, and we were having a little talk before the call, before that we started recording here, and you mentioned how Scholar's Edge, it's ruined you in a way. And obviously you mean that you have a lot of pauses behind what you mean by that. Can you describe how has it ruined you, Mac?
Well, it's changed my outlook on life a little bit. Like, it's changed the way that I view things, as in, before, when I'd only experienced trading my time in for money, I've changed the way I look at things to now it's okay, how can I make things make money for me, and how can I leverage other people's times or other resources to make that money for myself, which is a little bit of it's changed the way that I look at things quite largely.
Okay. And you've decided to return for a 3rd year. And why are you hanging around Scholar's Edge? I mean, it's obviously, I know you've done quite well financially, but do you feel like your learning has ended, or do you think that you have more to learn?
At the end of my first year, I thought that my learning had ended a little bit. And so carrying into my 2nd year, I learned a whole ton in my 2nd year as well. And I think that there's always going to be that part of you whenever you go through something that's super difficult. You think like, okay, now I've mastered this. But I do have a lot of things in my 2nd year that I wish I would have done differently. The same as, in my first year, I had a lot of things I wanted to do differently. So I changed that for my 2nd year. Now out of my 2nd year, I have a ton of things that I want to do differently. And I'm not quite satisfied yet with the outcomes that I've had out of either of my 2 years here. And even if you think you know everything, you really don't know everything.
Right. When you think of it's really interesting you say that. It's I've been at this for 26 years, and every year I always look at things that I can do differently. And I think that the growing and the learning, never ends. And if you take the mindset that you know everything, well, then that's when you start going backwards in your business. We always talk about your business goes. There's no standing still. You're either going forward, or if you stand still, you're going backwards. You're gonna get run over. So now you look back. Now you've been at this 2 years. Describe to me what would you say? What kind of advice would you give for a new student looking at this opportunity?
The biggest advice I think I'd give is trust your numbers. Right, there were moments throughout my first year where I doubted the system a little bit, because I was at the bad end of my averages. Right, when you look at everything and you look at over the course of a whole summer, you have everything regresses back to the mean, right? And what I kind of mean by that is if you have a really bad week with sales, right, you might have a really good week the week after. If you have a week or two that don't go super well with management, you have the opportunity to just shift things around. So always remember that regardless of how things are going with your averages, that things will get better and that everything always regresses back to the mean.
And you've obviously been a part of this now for a couple of years, and I like to think that it's somewhat of a family atmosphere at Scholar's Edge. You meet some other super highly motivated individuals. Can you speak to how that's perhaps helped you?
For sure. I mean, when you're inside your community, you don't necessarily meet a lot of people that have the same drive or the same focus as you might with your age demographic. When I'm in a normal classroom, I usually don't meet another person that gets up and wants to go out and test themselves each and every day. So when you surround yourself with other people that are really similar to yourself, that want to go out and do really cool things within their own business and outside of that with athletics as well, then you get to go out and do really difficult things, and then afterward tell all of your other friends within the organization what difficult things you did, and maybe go out and hang out with them afterwards. So yeah, we definitely have a really good culture here with that.
I'd almost say that you've met some of your best friends within the company.
Oh, for sure.
So what's next for you? You're running a business again for a third year. Do you see yourself growing with Scholar's Edge into the future beyond next year?
That's a tough one for me to say. I mean, I always take things by the year, right? Next year, I look at myself coming back, I see myself operating. And then the year after that, I'm not sure whether I'd want to, maybe take the step as a district manager. I could definitely see myself going down that kind of a route. Or if on the wild chance that something doesn't go as well for me next year, then maybe I want to come back and redeem myself as an operator again. I do think that throughout university, this is something I could see myself continuing with for basically the entire time, because I don't think there's much else I could do throughout university that would give me the same immersive experience.
It's really interesting that you say that, because I think every year as an entrepreneur, there's always like a little bit of doubt that we have, right? And that little doubt is that little seed that motivates us to keep pushing, that we haven't, we're not quite there yet. And I hear a lot when you're talking just how, you're not satisfied. You always want something more. And that's a trait that I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners have, is that they're never satisfied. They want to just keep improving and succeeding, and they like the challenge.
I don't think I'd be here if I was satisfied with everything I did every day. If I didn't come back home at the end of the day and think I should have done this and this differently, then I don't think I'd grow as quickly into the role that I need to have.
Awesome. You're also, before Scholar's Edge, you were quite a competitive guy. You played competitive lacrosse. You played, I think, rugby, Team BC. You've done, you were at Trinity Western on a rugby scholarship. And can you speak to how sports have influenced or helped you? And how does that influence your competitiveness within Scholar's Edge?
Yeah. Well, sports and business are quite interlinked, where in sports you have a lot of failures, right? You get tested a lot. You might have an injury. You might have different things that impede you. You have other people that they want if you end up getting up to your spot, they need to keep your spot, right? And you have other people that want that spot just as bad, if not more than you want it, right? So even the same thing in business. It's the person that gets up each day and does everything that they should do and more, and knows that their spot could be taken from them in basically the blink of an eye, right? And if I have my spot, I need to want it a lot more than other people. Otherwise, I won't get it.
Almost sounds like a race, like someone's always chasing you and you're looking over your shoulder. So anyways, Mac, it's been great. Thanks for putting in the time for this little interview. The reason why we do this is so that new people can look into the program and just see individuals that have been successful like yourself, that have done very well. I wish you all the best with Scholar's Edge going into next year. and competing again for one of the top spots as you have done this year. So thank you so much, and we'll talk later.